Rachel with Stirring the Deep, and this is the next instructional lesson in a series that I'm doing called Stir the Deep with Me. Today we're going to be talking about expectations. What can we expect from this quiet time with God? The first point that I want to make is that all the expectations that you have about timing and how things occur, you need to put to the side and leave those up to God. By timing, I mean how quickly you feel you're diving into intimacy with God, your connection with Him, how your relationship is developing, what speed it's developing at, the way that it's developing. Those sorts of things you really need to leave up to God, because that's a very individual journey and it varies with each one of us. And I'll explain some of the reasons in a minute why. But that's really something that a lot of people, they stop spending this time because they think, well, I should be at a certain point by now. And so they give up when they really need to just leave that timing up to God. Because if you do persist in this, you will grow in deep intimacy with Him, which changes everything else in your life. And that leads me to the next point. What can we expect? And we look to the Bible for those things. And there's certain things that we read about and promises that God gives us. Like He rewards those who diligently seek Him. That it says that seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. He has a priority: seek me first, and then I'll take care of the rest. And I have seen that in my own life, that as I put Him first, I put this time first, that it has absolutely changed everything else in my life, and everything else flows from this time. And then there's promises about knowing God's love and loving others. And a lot of times those promises are just spoken of, like, the fruit of the Spirit. But those are things we all long for, to know that love, to have that love for others, to have that fruit of the Spirit, and for it to be real fruit, meaning it's not something that we're trying to force or create in our life, which means it's not really real or coming truly from our heart. But for it to be true fruit of the Spirit, then our roots have to be in good soil. And when they are, then that fruit is a natural outcome. That's the result. So the idea of having our roots in the good soil, that's what we're doing here. We're putting our roots in that time with God, in His Word, in that communion with Him. And that is the best place for them to be, to grow and to flourish. So these are some of the things that we can look forward to. And then I'm going to talk about a couple things more specifically that I think are true for most believers' life, and they're things that I experienced in my own journey. Now, the other point that I want to make about this is that it is not instant by any means. This is a process. This is a journey. This isn't just something that you're going to do and then you're going to be this great person, everything's going to be perfect in your life, and then you're moving on. No, this cultivating relationship with God is a lifelong commitment. And the processes and the growing Him, that takes time. And a lot of it takes time because you are developing true intimacy and trust. And to truly trust God, you have to experience Him in your life. So that means circumstances have to be set, and you have to walk through those situations with Him. And you have to go through situation after situation and see His faithfulness, see how He works, start learning of Him, and trust grows and builds. It takes time. This isn't something that's instant or quick or fast. So I think that's something that's very important to remember. And one of the reasons, let me give you an example of this, why it's a process, why it varies for each person, why it has to be in God's timing, is because as you start coming into intimacy with God, just like a real relationship, issues start coming up in you that are blocking that intimacy with God. Just like when you're in a marriage and you start living with somebody in that close intimacy and with them all the time, issues start coming up. I know that happened for me, and we often call marriage one of the great refining tools of God, because it just brings all this stuff up out of us. And that's what happens when you're spending time with God. These issues start coming up, but He's bringing them up because they're blocking, one, that intimacy that you have with Him, and two, you experiencing the abundant life that He came to give you. Issues like maybe repressed anger or unforgiveness or self-doubt or a lack of self-value, these kinds of things, and it varies again for each person, and working through those things so that truth is truly instilled in you, and love and mercy and forgiveness and those kinds of things, that sometimes takes time, and it varies for each person. So you're going to be going through that process as you're abiding with Him, so you can just expect that to happen. And sometimes the way those things are made apparent to us are by the circumstances in our life, and sometimes the trials in our life, because those bring up and say, wait a minute, something's off here, something's wrong, and it makes us dig and seek, and then God kind of walks us through that process and heals us in that process. So that's why it takes time.